Welcome to 8 Minutes to Chew On. In just 8 minutes, we'll deep dive into the message preached on Sunday. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking insights, practical applications, and inspiring takeaways. Join us as we digest each sermon, nourishing our minds, hearts, and lives with the transformative teachings of Jesus.
Hi everybody, welcome to our 8-minute segment about the sermon that Rudolph preached through on Sunday. Just remember that this is meant to just challenge you a little bit more and help you with practical application. So we encourage you to listen to it, meditate over it, and most important thing is, what's the Spirit of God saying to you? What needs to change? And so welcome, Pastor.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, good sermon yesterday.
Thank you.
You said earlier that preparing there was something more that you just wanted to share around the sermon, and so maybe we can start there.
Yeah. You know what? I think the whole thing about meekness for me is quite a challenge because of the way we perceive meekness to be, and I think that's how I started yesterday as well. Is what is your understanding when I say meek, and like I emphasized yesterday as well, Nick, is that so often that's interpreted as weak. You know, so a meek person, like we said earlier on, doesn't say no when things are wrong. A meek person doesn't say no. He just goes with the flow. And that is really not what it is. You know, so I think in meekness, there's phenomenal strength. And that's the balance we have to have. Meekness for me, humility is an attitude. Meekness is how I treat people. And so I think sometimes we feel like we've just got to say yes to everything and then even go with something that goes against the grain, against your vision as a leader. We've just mentioned it a bit earlier on. Sometimes we just go, it's okay. And that's not meekness. Meekness still means strong leadership. And I want to touch on that next week again. But I think don't mix the two. Don't get that balance wrong. Meek is not equal to weak. Meek is actually strength under control. And I think that's my emphasis. Strength under control.
So, Pastor, now going to Psalm 37, which was the psalm that you brought out in the sermon. One of the interesting things about that psalm is it tells us not to fret. It tells us not to look at the world and the success of the world. It tells us to trust in God, look to God, commit our ways to God, and let God do it. And so my question to you is, how do I practically do that? Because, you know, I'm taught in the world that if I want something, I chase it. If I want to inherit the world, I work hard.
You conquer it.
I conquer it. It doesn't matter what casualties there are, because I conquer it. Where Jesus comes and he teaches us meekness. He says, no, you will inherit the world. You'll inherit the earth. But it's in gentleness, it's in meekness, it's in trusting me. How do I live that?
Yeah. Let me give you a practical example. You know, we have not done it right always at the church, and I think we have to admit that. I think sometimes we wanted to go somewhere and we pushed too hard, and some people got a little bit hurt in the process as well. And I think that's unfortunately part. But one example for me that I can use is when COVID hit us. I realized that we're going to lose income, we're going to lose people, we're not going to have people here. The president promised us it's going to be 3 weeks. It almost was 3 years. And in that process, even in our feeding scheme, where we almost fed 1 million meals, time and time again, I just said to the Lord, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I cannot bring people here because the government said no. We don't have the money, so we've got to trust you. So I'm just going to roll it over to you. And I think for me, that was the strength for my own peace as a leader, as a visionary, to be able to do this in peace, knowing that Psalm 37, and I read Psalm 37 in the Amplified Version, which is a great version to read. It just really emphasizes what it means. So I think for me, the greatest emphasis during that difficult time was this whole thing: commit your ways to the Lord. In other words, roll it over. Remember the illustration of the barrel. It's continuously to say, Lord, I'm running, because I didn't sit back. We didn't sit back during that time. But we kept saying, unless the Lord builds the house. Unless the Lord does that. So I learned to work with God. And I think for us, that COVID was a great test for us to see, how do we work with God? And how do we make sure that we don't run ahead of God and run in different directions? When your resources are so limited, you've got to trust God. And for me, that was a phenomenal opportunity. Constant. You know, I can honestly say I wasn't stressed. And that's not my nature. That's not my nature. But I think during that time, COVID really, really taught me at my ripe age just to commit these things to the Lord, to roll it over to Him. And for me, that's my daily challenge.
Yeah. So, Pastor, now I listened to you, and one of the questions, and you raised it a little bit yesterday, does that mean I just sit back and do nothing? Does it mean I just say, well, it's in God's hands, and so, I'm meek? I'm going to just be gentle and sit in my corner and wait until God does something, or does it mean something else?
Yeah, it does mean something else. And I think that again for me, and I know some people, is that they think that God will bless their laziness. It doesn't work like that either. So you cannot sit back. You cannot just, like I said yesterday, I alluded to it as well, is go and sit on your couch, watch the TV and say, God will just do this. It's in our running, in our working, we continuously look up. So I think God wants you to continue to build. God wants you to continue to work hard, not sit back. So the waiting is not sitting. The waiting is an attitude more than just, folding your arms. I mean, the Bible speaks about laziness time and time again, So God does not bless laziness. But God also doesn't bless when we don't consult Him in that process, when we don't wait for Him. And there's something, it's like maybe a picture that will work, is that lion that is ready to make that kill. As you can see, he shakes. He's so ready just to do it. He's not sitting waiting and saying, maybe the impala will run into my mouth. That's laziness. That's laziness. And I think that meekness means I'm so ready to do the will of God. I'm so ready to work for God. I'm just waiting for that opportunity to jump out of the blocks here and run.
My last question to you as we close is that when you read Psalm 37, when you think about meekness, you realize that what Jesus is talking about is that our strength is in our relationship with Him. And as I said, as we close, those that are watching, those that are listening, who are going through tough times now, how important is their closeness to God?
I think it's the glue, that makes us stick, is our relationship with God. Because let's face it, this world is not an easy place to live. There are times where I feel like, it's difficult to walk upright with God. It's difficult to do the right thing. Financially, it's difficult for a lot of people. A lot of businesses have closed down. Marriages are in distress. Teenagers, people are just wayward. So our relationship with God is the glue that makes us stick. And so, people often say to me, how long do you pray? How much do you read? I don't think it's how long or how much. I think the fact is how meaningful it is. When you've got 2 minutes, when you've got 3 minutes, when you've got 5 minutes, is make that so meaningful and continuously. These are all trusting, delighting, and committing, and be still. It's all written in the continuous tense. It's not just sitting here for a moment. It's continuously trusting in God, continuously waiting. And it's just moments in the day we've just got to say, Lord, I trust you. I trust you. I believe in you. It's the glue. It's my relationship with God must be meaningful.
Thanks for joining us. If you have any feedback, please let us know in the comments. To watch the full sermon, you can click the link in the description, and we'll see you next week.